Hello and welcome to episode 1365 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, January 13th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by my enemy this week, a real commie of a guy, Washington Commanders fan, Justin Mason. What's going on, man?
And I quit smoking today, so
Right. So
it's like,
imagine your team losing to mine in the midst of quitting smoking. You're going to be raging out.
I mean, I don't know if you watched the game at all last night,
Oh, I
but
did.
it was so stressful. And when that kicker hit the freaking upright,
Okay, so we know the after effect that he doinked.
yeah,
Were you nervous when they were showing him go through every little thing on the sideline? Did you think that that conveyed nerves for Zane Gonzalez? Because now we've rewritten the narrative there, but I think it was kind of noticeable during the time. Like, this guy's like extra nervous. He was changing his sock, or he was going through so many different little things. He seemed nervous as hell. And by the way, I'm not talking trash. I don't know how you couldn't be. I respect the kickers that are ice cold all the time because everything is on you. And it's like
when
you could be 49 for 49 that year. You miss the 50th and it's to win the playoff game. You're the biggest loser in the universe. It's so brutal being a kicker. So Zane doinked it in, and now we're going to face your Commanders. My
yeah,
Lions.
when he was walking on the field, like, and he kept
Yeah.
starting to put on his helmet and like touch his hair, started
Did
blowing
that
up.
make you nervous?
I mean, it
Or
was just
read
in
it
my
as nerves for him? Or were you just like, okay,
I,
he's just being a goofy kicker?
No, I mean, I definitely felt the nervousness from him. At the same time, I've been a Commanders fan my entire life, and it's been 19 years since we won a playoff game.
Yeah.
Uh,
I went through
and
that last
so,
year.
yeah, it's like one of those things where, like, I kind of expect to be disappointed.
Right.
I just so like
This is the first time ever that I don't.
yeah,
Like, at all. And we might lose, right? I'm not guaranteeing anything. I'm not playing. So, like, obviously I'm not going to guarantee anything. But my sister keeps asking, like, who do you want to play this? I do not care. The Lions are a favorite against everybody left. Yes, Buffalo. Yes, Baltimore. Yes, Kansas City. I think they're a favorite against all of them. And even if they're not, they're a favorite in my heart, and I feel confident, which I've never felt. We rarely make the playoffs in the first place. So even those teams that like Stafford squeaked in, I was never surprised by the wild card loss. Back in the Barry Sanders era, we knew he was kind of a one-man show. And then we had these great receivers and no quarterbacks to get to them. So I've never felt comfortable with the Lions until this year. Even last year was a lot of the nerves of like, okay, they got to prove it to me. They run to the championship, tough loss, but I'm all in on this team. And I can't wait, dude. I love that our teams are battling. Obviously,
yeah.
folks probably know that Jason's also a big Commanders fan.
Mhm.
So I kind of feel like I got to be on the Sunday app to either eat my
Oh,
crap or to
is the game on Saturday?
360 dunk on you absolute losers. Yes, it is. We have the Saturday
Okay.
night game.
I mean, in many ways, like, I feel like we're playing with house money, right? Like,
Well, for
it's
sure you
like
feel that when you're a wild
we,
card team facing the one, right?
well, and we also, like, we won 4 games last year. We went
Right.
four
The
and
turnaround.
13.
Yes.
Like we're playing with house. Like, I never in a million years thought we'd be in the playoffs and winning a playoff game this year. So,
You're
like,
going through every emotion I did
yeah,
last year with the Lions, just like
yeah.
to a
So, like,
T. Expecting the disappointment, playing with house money,
yeah.
and it's awesome.
But that being said, yeah, you for sure should come on the Sunday episode, and so that way we can roast you or you can roast us.
I think
Sounds
we're
like a
locking
plan.
that in. That'll be great. But yeah, that's the Sunday night game. My Detroit Lions hosting Jason and Justin's Washington Commanders. Should be a lot of fun. I know we don't talk a ton of hand egg on here, but both of our teams are all three of our teams are still in it. As two teams there, and it's pretty exciting. Yeah, I am pretty geeked, but I'm also fully into baseball too. So I've never had it like this either, where it's like I am fully into both right now. I'm
I
all
know
over
you.
football.
Usually, it's easy for us to transition
Right.
from football to baseball because our football teams are so bad.
It happens January 1st, if not like November 1st, right? Because
Yeah,
you were 4-13 last year. The Lions have been in the dumps for many, many years. So we
it's usually
transition early.
it's usually mid-October for me.
Right. Sometimes they get out to like a little start where it's like, oh, maybe they're going to do something. And then like, no. But by the way, is it lame? I know I said enough hand egg, but one quick question just to bother you perhaps. Is it lame to see the parallels between Daniels and RG3, does that bother you? Are you nervous about
Oh, it
like
scares the crap out of me. Absolutely
okay.
scares the crap out of me. So, I'm sure other people are like this. I have stopped buying jerseys for myself of current players because the
Sure.
last one I bought was RG3.
Oh,
And
so
then
you feel like
like
it's a hex thing.
yeah, oh dude, you should see my closet of Washington football jerseys because it is all players that like were traded, ended up being massive busts,
Do you have a Sean
or
Taylor jersey? Rest in peace.
I do have a Sean Taylor jersey. I bought that one after
That
he
one
passed away.
special, right? Yeah,
And
obviously.
I bought a Chris Cooley jersey after he retired.
He was a
But
stud,
like
man.
I've got a Lavarius Coles jersey.
Oh my god.
I have a LeVar Arrington jersey, and like I bought it. What does he do? He signs with the Giants.
Yeah, of course.
Like I mean, and I honestly can't even remember half the jerseys I have. So like, yeah, the last jersey I bought for myself of a current player was RG3. And
Are you gonna wear that Saturday?
2 weeks later, dude, blew out his knee. Like just like it wasn't. I didn't even get a full season of it.
Oh
like,
my goodness,
I bought
that
it
is
like
rough.
yeah. So
I see why you think it's a hex. I see why you feel that
I
way.
absolutely am petrified every time because he loves to run and
Yes,
like
he's good at it.
He's not very good at sliding yet.
No.
And yeah, I'm absolutely just my heart just jumps into my throat every time he takes off. But
How could it not?
Just got to have the faith that it's going to be all right. And when it's not, I'll cry.
Yeah, Alex Anzalone gonna bust him up next week. Anyway, let's move on back into our first base preview. I do want to say one thing about the Jeff Hoffman signing, which I know you guys talked about yesterday. I have not heard it. Did either of you point out that even when the Jays get a guy, they still finish second? Because I saw that joke floating around. I didn't make that up, but you know they have this whole thing about finishing second all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is, they finally got a guy, but they finished second again. He was going to go to other teams because of the failed physicals, which I'm sure you guys talked about, but it just cracks me up that even when they win a guy, they're still getting roasted for not actually being the first choice.
I hadn't seen the news that he failed the physicals. I didn't realize it until today during my chat. Someone brought it up.
How's that make you feel about? Well, can you reset where did you guys think he's going to be the closer, like unencumbered in Toronto? Yeah, which I think so too. How does that make you feel with the failed physical? Is that something that you put a lot of stock into, or teams just judge players differently? Like what? Remember we had the whole Correa thing, and yes, he's gotten hurt since then, but he's also had some great seasons too. So it's not like he's been this stone cold bust or anything like that. How does that change your opinion on Jeff Hoffman then, now that you know that he failed some physicals?
I think I'm much more likely to only draft Hoffman now where I can handcuff Garcia to him. Garcia. So it does bother me a little bit. At the same time, there's kind of this weird pro and con of it. Like on the pro side, like they gave him a 3-year deal. Like they must believe in the health enough to say, we're going to give you a 3-year deal to be the closer here.
And we know he has historical stuff. So could it just be that like whatever wear and tear the historical injuries for Jeff Hoffman have put on him, those teams were seeing as red flag? Like, because I don't know the details. Like, what did they see? Did they see something that they thought was going to happen this year? Or is it just like, nah, he's more broken down than we thought by the metrics that we have? Because I imagine every team has kind of their own in-house way of analyzing these medicals, or else we wouldn't have teams differ so much on opinions.
Yeah, the part that scares me is that there was two teams. Teams,
Baltimore and Atlanta, two competitors, two like big-time teams too, right? Like top of the heap teams.
That two teams determined he was not worth signing after, going to the limit, getting that physical, and then went, oh no, we can't.
The Braves were offering him 5 years, dude.
Yeah. So
they love the talent, and then something scared them off. I wonder if it's more that I'm making this up, by the way. I'm trying to be funny, but like, I wonder if they came to their senses of like, did we just sign a reliever to a 5-year deal? No. Tell them the medicals are fucked. We got to get out of this.
So I wonder if both Baltimore and Atlanta were going to try to sign him as a starter.
If you're talking like the 5-year deal, especially, I have to wonder that too, because we've seen so many of these transitions more recently here, and we're seeing a big one with Clay Holmes switching within New York, going Yankees to Mets and going to be a starter. I do wonder that too, and maybe that's where the medicals really came in, is that they just didn't believe he could hold up for more than 60, 70 innings a year, in which case you don't want to do a 5-year deal for Jeff
Yeah.
Hoffman. And that would be something that I could understand a bit more. But we don't have any clarity on that right now. So I'm open to drafting him. I do think he's the guy in Toronto. I'm with you that I would probably want to get a handcuff in a lot of situations, whether that's Jimmy Garcia, Chad Green. You mentioned Garcia. Is that the guy you think it is? Or have they said that he's like...
It's probably Chad Green, actually.
Okay, because Green's still there.
Yeah.
Both a bit older, though. Both 34 years old, have had some issues. Eric Swanson's still lingering. Remember, they signed him to a decent deal they traded for him from Seattle in a high-profile deal, which I think he's been injured too. So they got some guys that you could do the handcuff with. I don't think there's a guaranteed handcuff. Does that make you more or less scared of drafting Hoffman than if there's not a clear handcuff? Unless you think Green is just clear-cut and I'm full of crap.
No, I mean, it doesn't make me more or less scared. I mean, I just think I'm probably going to stay away from Hoffman unless I'm getting a really good price. And I just think his price is going to go up here. So
right. And I will refresh on that price. I'm sure you guys talked about it yesterday, but that price currently is pick 260. And that was, again, 38 draft champions since December 1st. And I doubt we have any that have processed since he's signed, so we can't get really that data right now. How high you think it goes up? Because everyone is going to treat him as a closer, even if it's not like a premium top of the scale closer. It's going to be like, hey, we think he's going to close, he's going to jump up. I think it could be as much as like 100 plus picks. So what do you think about... Oh, actually, you know what? I do have some data here, because I forgot draft trends. When you click on a profile page, you can see the individual dots. He's inside the top 100 since January 10th. Jeff Hoffman has skyrocketed here. I got a bunch of bubbles: 79, 91, 108, 76, 91 again, 99. A couple outside the top 100. But yeah, it's looking like the ADP is going to jump up to like 120, if not higher, for Hoffman. And you're saying that that's taking you out all the way, yeah?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that's taking him above, let's see, inside the top 100, closer going just outside the top 100, Ryan Walker.
Okay.
Lucas Urseg, who's probably been my most drafted closer so far.
I like Urseg, but I kind of see them similarly then. Like really intriguing arms.
The injury risk is...
The injury risk, sure, but I don't know, man. I don't think these physical things make me run away. I was a big Jeff Hoffman guy last year. Remember, I had him taking over the job in Philly. Never quite got there.
I'm still a big fan. And maybe I will come around to it, but that feels... awfully
that's
scary.
A big jump, but that's when you become a top closer, right? And we know that if they anoint a guy, they stick with him. The only thing that ever took Romano out of getting saves was his health. So Hoffman is going to be like an A guy, and there'll be an occasional save for a Green, a Garcia, because he won't be able to go 3 days in a row or whatever the case. But I think you can trust Hoffman as a premium guy, and it has to come down to the health risk for you. You think it's a bit too high at a 100 to 110 ADP. I don't necessarily think you're wrong, but Kirby Yates, Ryan Walker, Trevor McGill are the relievers that go 117. Where did you say Walker was?
Like 120, I think.
Oh, yeah. And then, pardon me here. Oh, yeah, he's 94 since December 1st, so he's even moving up. So that'd be Urseg at 104, Yates at 117, and then Trevor McGill at 134, who obviously many people believe is going to now take the spot of Devin Williams. And I'm not sure when Devin Williams' trade was. That might still include some pre-Devin Williams trade data. Actually, let me just do what I just did. Hello, Paul. Use your brain. Click on it. Find the dots on the draft trends here, because McGill could be even higher. But if that's, yeah, he is. He's inside the top 100 recently as well, Trevor McGill. If you want one of these guys, like, these are not even the tip-top guys. This is where saves go in a DC. I'm open to taking Hoffman at that. I think he's just as good as this group, even with an injury risk. If there is an elevated one, which we don't know. If we were the Braves or the Orioles, we think yes. The Jays think no. You know how I feel about injuries. I'm not going to let that take me off a guy completely, especially one who was not hurt last year.
I guess it makes sense because, I mean, Pete Fairbanks is going like 157.
Yeah, and that's where you start to get, and you want to talk about injury risk.
Yeah, I think I'd probably just wait, and I mean, hopefully I already have a closer at that point, and then
or get Urseg. You said you liked Urseg.
Yeah.
So you get more Urseg shares, and that's fine. Between
And
those two, I'm okay being on the Urseg side. I lean the Hoffman side, but I'm big on Urseg too, so I'm with you.
I'll grab like David Bednar later.
Okay,
Like
yeah, the rebound of Bednar, I'm actually kind of bought in on that too. I think
Ben Joyce is going 187. Michael
I still
Kopech
really
going
like him too.
183. Kenley Jansen, who's gonna sign somewhere, is 193. Like,
And he'll
I
jump
think
up,
I think I would
50
rather
picks.
pass on Hoffman at that price and just try to, pop on one of those guys.
I think that's okay. I think that's okay to do that. I'm going to be more aggressive with Hoffman, but I can't blame you too much. All right, let's get back into the first base preview here. We've actually just got 3 big segments, and we're not going to be able to deep dive everybody. I know you guys don't need 10 minutes on Davison De Los Santos, a guy I actually like, by the way. I don't mean to pick on him. He's just the last guy on the list. But even in this power light category, I doubt we deep dive everybody. But it's an interesting group, and power light is in respect to the top end, because you got some guys here that can hit into the 20s and maybe have even flirted in the upper 20s here, but for the most part they're pretty low. And the very first guy's not going to surprise you. It's Luis Arraez, Spencer Steer, Yandy Diaz, Alec Boehm. I put Cody Bellinger in here with a question mark because you might not think, what, power light, 426 slug last year and 18 homers in 569 plate appearances. His 569 plate appearance per plate appearance home run rate before this year was 28. So that's a 10 homer drop there. I put Spencer Steer in the list twice, my bad. Josh Bell, Spencer Horwitz, Nolan Shanwell, Jose Miranda, Alec Burleson, Jake Cronenworth. Let's start going in order here. Again, we might not get to everybody deep dive, but let's start with Arraez. We know he's a very specific build. You could probably just go back to last year's preview and play the tape because it's not going to be different here, but let's refresh everyone's memory. This is a specific build type. I've always been of the mind that you should go in with a plan if you want to draft him and then work around it to supplement your power. You've been more open to being flexible with it. If you end up getting, say, 90 homers in your first 2 batters, but their batting average risks a little bit, then maybe you would take an Arraez on the fly type deal. Are you still there with him? He was down from 354 to 315, and we knew he'd regress, but it's back to what he was in 2022. Is it really doing it for you if it's a 315 average? Don't you need the 350 for Arraez to really be something?
Yeah, and I mean, you just can't bank on it, right?
So hard.
Yes. Does he have the ability to hit 350? Absolutely. Is he going to? Probably not. I mean,
it was a career high 362 BABIP, right? And
yeah,
we all knew that he rode hot, and that's great. That's the kind of year you can get, but he was right back to 2022 last year.
But I mean, I think
last year
is exactly what you should be penciling in, right? It's, like a 315 average and or high single digit home runs and some chip in stolen bases, a fair amount of runs and not very many RBIs. And if you like to build your team that way, the problem is I hate building a team where I have a player who I am dependent on getting a good average from. It is just so difficult to build because all it takes is an injury. All it takes is just some bad luck, and you're screwed. It is so hard to find batting average on the wire.
And the injury piece is very important too, because one of the key elements of somebody like Arraez is the 600 plus plate appearances for 3 years. So even if he is hitting you, say a 320, so higher than 2 of the last 3 years, but still well off of that 354 mark, if it comes in 450 plate appearances, or let's say at bats, obviously, because that's what batting average is off of. So it actually has been 600 at bats just once, 574 and 547. So let's call it over 500, but let's say it dips down to 420, 4.25. That takes a big chunk out of the impact of it as well. And that makes it even that much harder. So I just never see myself rostering Luis Arraez. He's a fit for a specific type, but it's just never going to be for me.
It's always going to be like, oh my God, my batting average is atrocious and I need someone to offset it. I'd still rather go with a Stephen Kwan because because I don't
Me
feel like
too.
he's a zero in so
And
many
outfield
categories.
versus
Yeah.
first base, second base. I know you can put him at second, so that does help. But if you have to put him at first or corner, that just feels like a waste for a rise with me. You gotta put him at second. And I just like other guys at second, which we'll talk about during the second base preview. Let's go to Spencer Steer. By the way, I'll mention a rise is at pick 195. So it's not an aggressive, like he did drop down from last year because the batting average came down 40 points. Still not something I want to pay, but not a horrendous price. I will acknowledge that at least. At pick 120, we've got Spencer Steer, a guy that this show has been a very big fan of pretty much since he's broken through. And he gave us no reason not to last year. I know he hit 2.25, and that is very low, and that stings you for 574 plate appearances. But I still got 20 homers, 25 steals with 92 ribs and 74 runs. I'll work around the average a little bit. And like you said, it is very, very difficult to find batting average on the wire. So that did hurt. I don't want to pretend that that was nothing from Steer, but I think there's enough heat on everything else. And the fact that I don't really believe that he's a 225 hitter and the 260 BABIP can definitely positively regress back toward his career average of 288. I'm still all in on Steer, even at pick 120. I think that's a fair price. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an okay price. I mean, you're talking about a guy who just went 2025, 92 RBIs. I think that Cincinnati's just going to keep improving offensively. So I think the runs and RBIs will be there. I think it all just comes down to the batting average with Steer. And I hate to say it, but I feel like the 225 is probably more indicative of the kind of guy he's going to be than the 271.
Okay.
Not that he makes decent in zone contact numbers, but he just doesn't strike the ball particularly hard.
But wait. Let me back up before you go too far here. Isn't 23 just as high end and 24 is low end? And I think this is an easy split the difference situation here with Steer's batting average. I think the projections are right in the 240s, and that's where I'm at with him. I just don't believe 2.25 is his true talent for Steer.
I'm probably closer to 240. They have Steamer has 244. I think 240 is probably about right. That's not and you can live with that, especially when you're getting the kind of production you're getting. And you're also getting a guy who's eligible at first and outfield. In some leagues he'll pick up other eligibilities. It seems unlikely he'll get back to getting second base or shortstop.
You will get second in 5-game eligibility leagues, and then you could add second or third in season if it's a 1-game eligibility because he could just pick up a random game.
Yeah.
But draft him as a first base outfielder first year because that's all you're guaranteed right now.
Yeah. I like him. I feel like he might be going a little bit high, but it's not bad at all. I wouldn't have a problem with anybody taking him where he's going.
Burger at 119 or Steer at 120. I know it's going to be what you need more, but just give me an answer of who you like better.
It's Burger for me.
Okay. I figured. I thought you were going to give me do I need the power more or do I need the power speed combo? Which is probably the right answer. I understand that, but I wanted you to make a definitive pick, and you did.
I feel like you can get the speed later. If you need
supplemental speed is a lot more available these days. Yeah. Oh, I did want to tack on that point. Let me circle back to a rise real quick. Were you moved at all by the fact that all 9 of his steals this year, a career high, came with San Diego? Do you think they might let him run more? Maybe he could kind of inch his way up to 11 or 12 next year, which is, again, not game-changing, but it's something.
Are we sure the rise is going to be on San Diego come opening day? Because they're trying to shed salary, and he seems to be the one that they want to get rid of the most.
Okay, that part is fair because he will be making, 12 mil?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say he stays there.
Financial issues. If he stays there, I think 6 or 7 is probably what I would project.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if you were moved by the 9 in 500 at bats.
It's nice, and it's nice to know that is in the profile, that. Hey, he could get back to 9, but I don't think I would project that.
That's fair. Okay. Anyway, Steer, Arise. Moving on. You knew we were going to get to this guy here at the power light category. It's Yandy Diaz. I know he tricked us for a good couple of months 2 years ago in 23, but it wasn't real, right? And he hit 22 homers that year. So you're like, well, that year was real. Guys, if you go back and look at it, it was 2 months. It was April and May. He hit 12 homers and he hit 10 the rest of the way, including 0 in June. Like, he instantly told you he was done with that home run stuff. He's like, here's 12. This should do you for the rest of the year, because I'm going to go 0 in June, 2 in July, 3 in August, and then 5 in September, October. And then back to 14 last year, which is Yandy Diaz. Do you like this profile a little bit more? Because you do get something of power, where it is that more consistent low double digits versus a rise. You don't get the batting average quite as high, but maybe you get a little bit more of a complete profile, at least in the 4 categories: runs, ribbies, homers, batting average versus a rise. I think that's the fair comp here, is judging these two against each other. Do you like Yandy Diaz or Luis Arraez better at their respective prices? And before I let you answer, I'm going to give you Yandy's price point of 214. So they're right, 195 and 214. They are in order on the first base ADP right now. Who do you like better, Arraez or Diaz?
I think it's Diaz, because at least you get some power.
I agree, especially at first base. And I know Arraez has the second base, but you know.
I mean, I really should probably look at my projections and go, because is there really
do you have your first base projections?
I'm pretty sure I've got them done. Like,
yeah,
it's
I'm
all
curious where you're at on him.
Let me sort by first base real quick, and then I can tell you.
While you're doing that, I'll point out that Yandy, like Arraez, had a huge BABIP in 2023 that led to his 330 average with the 22 homers. So it was a great year. No denying that for Yandy last year. But it wasn't the beginning of a new level. It was simply a breakout year at age 31, and he came right back to the guy that we're more in line with over the previous 3 seasons last season at 14 homers, 65 ribs.
It's Yandy. It's not even close. Like,
okay.
I guess it's not that far off, but there are a lot of guys in between.
You do get Yandy cheaper too. So that's important. And again, I think it's the ribbies and the homer. When you're talking 14 to 4 homers, 10 homers, that's a big deal. When you're talking 46 to 65 ribbies, 20 ribbies, that's a deal.
And if they hit their like 80th percentile outcome, isn't like Yandy Diaz like still like a 25 homer bat in that scenario? Whereas like Arraez is probably like a 10 homer bat. Like, it's
No, the upside is still there for Yandy, because if he can figure out the lift, maybe he's figures something else out, right? Whatever worked in April, May of 23 didn't stick. Maybe he tries something else. The actual power to strike the ball is there for Yandy. That's why we are so excited to get him to lift, because we think he could hit 30 something. I don't know if
there's going to be a really discouraging comp I'm going to make later on in this series, because we're not talking third base today. But his teammate, who is someone who's everybody's going crazy over, and I'm going to go crazy over too, in Junior Caminero, has similar launch angle issues. And I'm projecting a much better season for Caminero and stuff like that.
But you have some concerns.
There is in the back of my head, I go, don't
slam the ball on the ground, please.
Yeah. It's like, if you've got a single digit launch angle, that is not necessarily going to carry a lot. So and Yandy Diaz is an extreme version of it. But like, I think people who are projecting like Caminero to like be a first round pick in 2026, because he's going to be so good in 2025, may be overrating or underrating the launch angle issues.
Right. Because that can stifle your power. Again, we've seen it plain and clear with his teammate Yandy Diaz. I included Alec Boehm here. He's only eligible in games in leagues that have 15 game or fewer eligibility. We tried to cast a wider net on our rankings, because we know not everyone's just NFBC focused the way we are. And so we're going to talk about him here, and we'll probably bring him up at third base as well. But I want to see how you feel about Alec Boehm in the context of first base. You might say you like him better at third, just because it is a position where you don't need as much punishing power. But we also know that first base is not super deep. So this is another Yandy Diaz type here. He's got the same kind of power profile in terms of just the home run output. Not that he beats the ball into the ground a ton with a great force, but 280 average, 15 homers, 62 runs, 97 ribbies. He and Yandy kind of flip the homer or the RBI and run situation based on where they bat, but their composite is pretty similar there. So I kind of see Boehm as an NL version of Yandy Diaz in terms of his statistical profile. I do like him better at third. He's picked 185, so he's right in line there with Arraez and Yandy. How do you feel about Boehm? Is he bankable here at this level?
I know you're a big fan of the shows Parks and Rec and Community.
Yes.
Were you a big fan of The Office?
Yes.
Okay, it's the same picture.
Yeah.
And so for those that understand, like there's a scene in The Office in which one of the characters is talking about a painting she painted, and she's all and like people are like, oh, I like this one better, and she's like, it's the same picture.
They're both the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's become a very popular meme. People will put,
Yeah.
you know, and it's similar to the Spider-Man pointing meme, another favorite that
Yeah.
I like to do. And I love, you know, like looking at these stat profiles. And like I said, they don't do it the exact same way.
No,
because Yandy is a StatCast darling except for his launch angle, but the output is very similar here with these two.
Yeah.
Does the
It's
third
good
base
average? It's less than 20 home runs. I do like the third base eligibility.
You
And
like
the
him
one
better over there, right?
And yes, and the one thing I do like about Baum, which is the reason why I'll probably have Baum on more teams than I will Yandy Diaz, is Yandy Diaz always seems to be nicked up. He doesn't miss a bunch of games, but
Right.
He always seems like I always get an alert that Yandy Diaz has been removed from the game.
Dealing with something.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's some sort of oblique thing or something, and he ends up coming back a couple days later. But that's really, really frustrating, especially if you're in like a weekly lineups league or an NFBC type of format where you can't just replace them for the next day, right? You're kind of stuck with them for the week. Whereas Baum is just a stalwart. And now I know that Philadelphia has flirted with the idea of trading Baum. They haven't yet, so I'm just going off of the assumption he's going to be on the Phillies. I think they should trade him if they can and then go sign Bregman, but that's just me.
I think that'd be a really good fit too.
I do too. So, but I like Baum as a very high floor guy. Doesn't have very much ceiling. I don't think there's going to be another level for Alec Baum, but I think he's just a steady, solid guy. Perfect for 15-team leagues. In 10s and 12s, I'll go a different way. I'll go somewhere with a little bit more upside.
Yeah, and I know it's easy to do this because he's going to be 28, so he's still on the right side of 30. And it's easy to kind of get in your head because he's now been stair-stepping his WRC plus up every year since 21. 76, 98, 106, 115. He's slowly improving, so I'll tack on a little bit more, and he's going to hit 22 homers and finally eclipse 100 ribbies. Don't do it. Don't plan for it. You can think in the back of your head that it's there. Lean on the projection. He's really been about the same guy the last 3 years. I know he's done that little stair-step improvement of his WRC plus, but Alec Bohm has been the same guy for 3 years. The results have just spit out a bit differently.
Yeah.
There's no real tangible reason to believe that there's going to be any great improvement here.
I'm sure he could hit 20 plus homers.
He's hit 20 before, so getting 4 or 5 extra balls to fly out because random distribution, that's of course possible.
Or because he changes his swing. He becomes a little bit more swing happy, doesn't make as much contact in the zone. But I don't think that's what he wants to do, and I don't think that's what the Phillies want him to do. So
Agreed.
I think there's some time, and I think the same thing could be said in some ways for Yandy Diaz. Like I think Yandy Diaz, if he wanted to swing for the fences and hit 255, yeah, he probably could hit 30 home runs. But I don't think the Rays want him to do that. The Rays want him to hit 290, get his 15 to 17 home runs, but be on base a lot more. So I mean, there are a lot of times where we go, oh, this guy could, but will he is a different, conversation.
And should he? Should he fundamentally alter his game for a few extra bombs? There's a comfort level too. That's probably what happened, or I shouldn't say probably what happened. It could have been what happened to Yandy Diaz is that he got a little uncomfortable in June, fell back into his old ways, June of 2023, and then was like, fine, I'm not going for the power anymore. I'll just be myself. And he was himself the rest of the year and still put up a great year. So, that's where Bohm and Yandy are. They are very similar there. The third base is probably the clincher there if you like Bohm a bit more. Like I said, I did include Cody Bellinger here with a question mark because if you want to tell me that you think the power is going to come back, I'll listen to the case. But I think he belongs here at least right now because I'll reiterate again, the slugging was just 426 last year with 18 homers and 569 plate appearances. That is 10 homers off the pace of homers that he would hit per 569 plate appearances prior to last year. And I kept it the same 569, even though it's kind of a random number, just to compare the two seasons there, or to compare the season versus the rate. 28 to 18. So his power was way out last year. He goes to the Yankees, which is appealing. Anytime a lefty goes to the Yankees, we're going to be a bit excited. Is that enough to get you back on the belly train where you think that this could be a power boon for him? Or is this new lower power Bellinger something that you're still interested in anyway? Where do you come out on Bellinger as a Yankee? By the way, before you answer, I think his dad played there too, so that's a little full circle moment where father and son get to play in the same spot, which is kind of cool.
I do think that Bellinger's power could come back. It is a much better park for him in terms of being a left-handed hitter. I think he dealt with a lot of injuries last year, which kind of hampered him a little bit. That being said, like he seems to be dealing with a lot of injuries every year,
Right.
so there's no guarantee that that resolves itself. So I like Bellinger. I'm going to take the gamble because I like him as just a player that can produce in all the categories. It's going to be a great opportunity in New York, but to like pencil in 25 home runs, I don't know that you should do that. Maybe 22, and then anything you get on top of that is gravy.
Yeah, I think just be careful. It's going to be easy to get caught up and think that Yankee Stadium's going to fix everything. It can, but I'm gonna play the wait and see. And if the price starts to elevate on me to a level that I'm not comfortable with, I'll probably bow out. He's at 112 right now. He also has that first base outfield eligibility, like Spencer Steer does, and he goes about 8 picks higher than Steer for Bellinger. Are you okay with that price point? That's around in between Vinny P and your favorite player ever, Tristan Casas. And that's a joke, by the way. He was very negative on Casas last episode. If you want to go back and listen to that, do you like Bellinger in that price point as a first base outfield?
Yeah, I do. I love Bellinger, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think that's a fair price.
And I go in biased toward him too, so I would pay that even with some of the caution that I'm preaching. He does have a max of 151, so if we're in the right room, we could get a discount on our guy. But there's going to be those rooms that are going to push him up too. He has a min of 70, and that being moved to Yankee Stadium is going to drive a narrative that here comes the power, it's going to return. And I get that. I do get it. I'm just not going to pay the premium for it. So if he creeps inside the top 100 consistently, I won't have as many Bellinger shares. Do you share that outlook too, or would you pay all the way up to like pick 90, pick 80?
Pick 90, pick 80. Let me
That would
see
put him
who
in the
else is going on
Naylor
here.
Christian Walker zone for first baseman. Do you have Bellinger? I know he can be as good as them, but do you have
No,
him?
I mean I don't have him that high.
Okay.
I think that would be too much for me, especially when you start talking about other positions going around there. Like even just like outfielders, because he's an outfielder. You can take him over Lawrence Butler. You can take him over Brent Boyle. Yeah,
I'm not going to take him over either of those guys.
Yeah, no, I'm not either.
Yeah, if that min pick is indicative of where he's been going since he's been a Yankee, I don't think I'll have Bellinger. But if he stays in that early 100s regularly and I can get him there sometimes, I'll cop a few shares on the buyback because I am excited to see what he can do in Yankee Stadium. Let's talk Josh Bell. Has he signed yet? I'm sorry. I should have.
He's with the Nationals.
I thought so. Okay, so back to the Nats, where he found some success a couple years ago now, right? It was all the way back in 2022, but he was amazing. I mean, he absolutely popped off there. 301, 384, 493 for Josh Bell in 103 games before being traded to San Diego as part of the big Juan Soto deal. Didn't go so well there, but that's 53 games after being traded clear across the country. I'm not going to hold too much against him for that because he bounced back to being fine the next year. And then a little less fine. Like the last 2 years have been fine. Can he recapture the magic of what he did as a National, or is this just... Oh, by the way, I should also point out, the full 2021 season there with the Nationals too was very good for Josh Bell. So he's going back to the place where he's had his most success outside of that one big year with Pittsburgh. Is this going to work for a 32-year-old Josh Bell?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can. But I mean, I don't know that it's going to be any better than it has been. I think he's probably a high teens, low 20s homer guy who, puts up a mediocre average. And I think he's going to play regularly. I think there are some questions about like, hey, like if he struggles, he's going to lose time because they do have Nathaniel Lowe in tow now too. They've got a very young team. He's going to be primarily a DH. So if he struggles, he loses time. And if he loses time, he might get DFA'd real fast. So I think there is some downside for Josh Bell that maybe hasn't been there in the past in terms of just overall playing time. But I think ultimately, I think he'll be fine. Like, I think he'll be a guy who he still makes pretty good in zone contact. He can still hit the ball hard when he wants to. Like, I don't think there's any sort of like massive red flags going like, hey, he can't be productive.
Yeah, and I think Josh Bell is an interesting rebuy here at pick 360. I mean, he's dirt cheap. Again, let me check some recent stuff. I mean, he's crept above that a little bit, 279, 272, 301, 296. So he's up since signing, which always happens. But even if the ADP starts to live there, say the early 300s, late 200s, I'll pay that. That's around like Tyler Soderstrom, who we're going to talk about in a bit, Spencer Horwitz, Luke Raley. I'd be fine with that, even if it elevates, like I said, up to pick 300. It's 360 right now. Are you okay if the price point continues to crawl up for for Josh Bell?
Yeah, I'd be totally fine with that.
Yeah, it just seems pretty reasonable there at that point that it's not going to kill you. All right, let's talk Spencer Horwitz. This is a guy I really like. Admittedly, more excited when he was going to Cleveland, but they dealt him 9 seconds later. We did talk about that trade when it happened. So if you go to Horowitz's player page, you can see under the articles there, you can find that podcast. That's the easiest way to go directly to a podcast that mentions somebody for a deeper dive on him. But I said there, I said there, and I'll reiterate here. I really like him. I'm very intrigued by him. Again, I think Cleveland would have been a better park than Pittsburgh to play in, but I'm not deathly afraid of PNC. If a guy's a good hitter, it'll hurt him a little bit, but not enough to kill me. Plus, I'll get, 8-9 games in Cincinnati, hopefully counterbalance it a little bit. But I love Horwitz. I think he can be a mid to upper 20s home run hitter with like a 260 to 270 something average. And then the runs and ribbies, they're not going to be amazing on Pittsburgh unless they take a step forward. But I'll project him for, probably somewhere in the 60s, 70s, depending on where I think he's going to bat, and be happy with that. I'm keyed up for Horwitz next year.
I think you're a little bit more keyed up than I am. I like Horwitz, but maybe just not as much as you. I worry about platoon issues. We haven't projected platoon. I do worry about that park. That park is probably one of the worst parks in baseball to hit in. I also have a worry about, like, where's he going to hit in this lineup? Right now, we haven't projected 6. I'd be okay with that, but I could also see, like,
who are the 5 ahead of him?
We have Isaiah Kiner leading off. He led off at the end of the year.
I know. I'm just trying to be funny.
Brian Reynolds.
Okay.
O'Neill Cruz.
Cool.
Andrew McCutcheon.
Not against lefty, not against righties. He should not be batting. And I love Kutch.
And then Joey Bart.
No, come on. I like Joey Bart. Stop it. Especially
they have our boy Brian Hayes batting 8.
I know they got Cabrizi down there at 8. Nick Gonzalez 7. Honestly. And I know we did this last year and it didn't come to fruition. I know you were big on them. I joined you on the bandwagon. I'm kind of geeked up again, though. Gonzalez, Hayes, Joshua Palacios is a 7-8-9. I'm not saying it's going to be world beating. I'm saying that's a competent 7-8-9 with a chance to surprise. So if the top 6 do their job, I think the little projection of a step forward that you were looking at Pittsburgh for last year could come to fruition.
If they weren't so effing cheap, man, like,
I know
this is like the perfect team to, like, go, like, hey, we're gonna go get this piece, we're gonna go get that piece, because we have all these cheap guys who are kind of studs that really, like, we could
put the right piece with it, and we got 2 aces. We have a true ace in Skeens already.
In a very winnable division,
right?
I mean, I've been doing that series on TikTok where I talk about teams that could surprise, and I think I'll probably talk about Pittsburgh today.
They're fun.
Like, this is a really winnable division. Milwaukee is worse than they were last year.
No doubt. Like, I think that is completely fair.
The Cardinals are worse than they were last year. The Cubs are probably a little bit better, but, like, are they that much better? Like, I don't know that they are. And the Reds, are they? I think they're going to be better. Are they that much better? Like, the Pirates,
I think they're going to be better, but that doesn't guarantee anything.
The Pirates could win this division if they went out and
that I agree with.
Dudes. They've got Bubba Chandler coming up from the minor leagues. They've got some young studs on this offense and this pitching stuff. Like, I wish Pittsburgh would do what they promised to do when they had taxpayers build them a beautiful stadium, the greatest stadium in Major League Baseball, according to some.
According to many. According to, like, almost a majority.
I'm a Giants fan, so, like,
right. I love whatever the hell it's called now. Oracle.
Shameless promotion part. Yeah.
But PNC never finishes, like, worse than 3rd in a list there. But yeah, I agree. If they had, like, you don't have to go spend on everybody, but like 1 or 2 mid-tier to mid to upper tier free agents there could be really special for that team. That's where you could make a big impact, right? You can't build your whole team on free agency. That's going to be impossible. But getting the right key guy, to really boost your offense or really push your rotation. I think for them it would be offense because they've got some really
Yeah.
blossoming rotation pieces. It could be great, but they're going to go with this.
They
And I think,
had gone and if they had gone and gotten Willie Adames, like
oh my
how
God. Oh my
how much
God.
better like would this lineup look?
They I can't imagine what that would have done to like their wild card odds in terms of like the gambling odds going into next year, because you replace Isaiah Kiner-Falefa with Willie Adames and then reshuffle that lineup a bit, put Reynolds at the top, Cruz 2, Adames 3, Horwitz for me 4, and then Bart McCutcheon.
Ha-Seong Kim. Like Ha-Seong Kim's still available.
Well, then wait on him. Take the discount, wait the extra month, and then there you go. Let IKF do it for a month, and then he becomes the super util. Yeah, I think they should. I think they should be in on something like that. But the bottom line is, I really like Horwitz. You're not wrong to have concerns about the park. I'm not going to slough that off completely. It's just not going to be enough to take me off of him. Because what I think it could do is maybe lower my power projection for him. Maybe I need to be more lower 20s, even upper teens. But maybe it improves the batting average a bit, right? They got that spacious outfield there. He's a line drive guy. He could rip some doubles in the gap and whatnot. So
and he
maybe.
walks.
Yeah, he takes his walks too. So maybe more doubles and singles, a couple fewer homers. Get on base consistently so they have somebody to drive in, because they do have some compelling pieces there. I like Horwitz. And as I mentioned already, his price point, he's priced to buy. Pick 310.
You ready for a hot take that shouldn't be a hot take?
Let's hear it.
Spencer Horwitz should lead off for this team.
I couldn't agree more. I said Reynolds there. I'm fully on board for that.
357 on base percentage last year. I know he doesn't run and teams want fast guys at the top, but like he should be leading off versus right-hand pitching. Like
right. I think that's completely fair. All right, let's move on to our next guy. I guess he's not that power light. I know he's a Gold Glover. Carlos Santana here. He just fits best in this category of the three that we have today. And I guess 23 homers, yeah, first base. That fits. But he just keeps churning out the quality, useful seasons. It's definitely a deep league type play, but just 19 to 20 homers. In fact, 19, 19, 23, 23 are his last 4 seasons. So I don't know if he's going to start a new 2-pack this year and be like 26 homers the next 2 years or whatever. But he's been pretty consistent. He is a batting average drain, 214, 202, and then 240, 238. You can live much more with those 240, 238. But you add it all up, the last 4 years, he's averaging 21 homers and a 224 average. What do we think Santana's going to do for his like 90th encore? He's 39 years old. I know you might start to be concerned about the age, but he just keeps getting it done. And like I said, he won a Gold Glove last year. He's back with Cleveland. Do you like this fit here?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to do exactly what he's done the last years, which is hit 23 home runs with like a 240 batting average. Like he's like it's really easy. If that plays in your league at first base, then go ahead. Like he's a 15-team quarter guy. Like that makes sense. Like there is no upside with him. There is downside that he's just old. Like
and gets back to the batting averages of the previous 2 seasons, 202, 214, like that. He could sink your average on where you're cutting him, but at the price you're paying for Carlos Santana, which is to say 360, that's baked in. You're fine. Yeah, you can live with that. All right, let's move on to the next guy. Just in the interest of time, there we can't spend it on everybody. Nolan Schanuel is kind of like in that Luis Arraez type camp, Yandy Diaz type camp. He's like aspiring to be them. Actually, no, he doesn't bring that much batting average. I'm sorry. He brings the OBP. He's more of an OBP version of them. It would be the better way to comp it. 13 homers, 10 steals. And that double is always, if it was 13 and 9, I'd barely notice. But because it's 13 and 10, that extra digit makes it look so much cooler. But it's 13 and 10 with a 250 average, 54 ribbies leading off and 62 runs because that team sucks. He's just deep league fodder, right? Yeah. Nolan Schanuel, or do you see any upside?
No, I don't really see any upside. Dude does not hit the ball hard. He has a 3.5% barrel rate last year. He on top of not hitting the ball hard, he hits with a low launch angle. He is just an on base dude. Like in your on base percentage leagues, he probably makes some sense.
Sure.
Like AL
deeper ones though.
Yeah, maybe even some 15-team mix on base percentage leagues, but other than that, no.
I think he's going too high too at 311. We just talked about a bunch of guys who are going after pick 311. I'm never taking Schanuel there. I am taking this guy though, and I feel vindicated. It was just a bit partial season. I got to be careful beating my chest too much. But my boy Jose Miranda came through. He found some playing time. He got healthy again. Look, he came in as a big prospect, did some decent things in 2022 that put him on the radar and people were excited. Had an injury washout, terrible 40 games in 2023. And I feel like people just forgot about him. He was nowhere to be found last year on the radar.
Well,
But
in their defense,
I'm
he
gonna
didn't have a
get
place
to
to
it.
play.
That's I was gonna say, and I understand because there was no real room to play. But it's not like the guys who got hurt were surprises. We knew the injury risks that was on that team too, and I still didn't really hear enough Jose Miranda chatter as like a deep league. Like I thought he was a perfect DC pick last year because of the injury concerns of Correa and of Royce Lewis and even of Santana just being old. And now he doesn't get hurt. He's actually pretty stable, but just the fact that he was going to be 38, I'm like, there's three positions there that they would work Miranda in if any of those guys got hurt. Because you, for the lineup that we thought it was going to be, you would then move Julian over to first, and then you could put Miranda at second. That's assuming that Correa and or Lewis are hurt. Bottom line was, I thought there was avenues because of the injury risk of that team. He ends up getting 121 games played, which was actually fifth most on the ball club. Castro, Santana, Manuel Margot, believe it or not, Ryan Jeffers, and then Miranda were the 5 120 plus game players on that ball club. Now he went 9 and 284. That's why I'm like, I'm not beating my chest too much here. This is just another Yandy Diaz type vibe here, but I like him. And I think he can do that again. And if you don't like to pay the premium on like a Yandy Diaz type, then you go get somebody like Miranda. What do you think of Jose Miranda?
I like Jose Miranda. I don't think there's a massive amount of upside to Jose Miranda, though. Like, I think this is a guy who is in some ways very Yandy-esque in different ways, right? Like, I don't
But
think
much cheaper though, right? If you like Yandy, why wouldn't you? I'm not saying why wouldn't you like, because you said you like Miranda, but wouldn't you prefer Miranda at pick 350? By the way, only 13 games at first base, so again, league specific whether or not he qualifies there for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Yandy's probably going to give you a little bit better average, but I think ultimately they're going to be very, very similar players. So like, I'm not overly worried about if I miss out on Yandy. Like, Jose Miranda is going to be around. I think he's got a pretty safe floor. He's got a really good hit tool. Not a ton of power, but enough to get to teens. Maybe even low 20s home runs if he's playing full time. He's also eligible at third base, which is where primarily you're going to play him anyways, because I think only Yahoo is the place where you can play him at first. So, I like Miranda. Nothing that like lights a fire under me, but also we get to a point at first base where it gets kind of gross, and Jose Miranda is not gross.
Yeah, and again, that I'm totally fine with all that. As much as I'm pumping him up to say that he's that, which I like. I like those late finds that excite me a bit. Again, he's third base primary and he plays first base in your deeper leagues, but I actually prefer that. I'm glad it's not the other way where he's first base eligible with a little bit of third base eligibility. I like that he's got the more rare position as his primary there for Jose Miranda. Alec Burleson was a really interesting find last year. And I know that this average that I'm about to say is not going to knock anybody's socks off, but we talk about not being able to find average on the waiver wire. He hit 269. That was a boon for folks, nice. At least in the 15-team landscape. Very nice. In the league league types that we play, getting somebody who can hit a 269 for the rest of the year, that's a big deal. Like you'll take that all day, especially when it's coming with 21 bombs, 9 steals, 78 ribs, and 71 runs. What does Burleson do for an encore? Do you believe in this breakout season that he had?
I believe he's going to do something similar to this. Like, I don't know if it'll be quite as good. I think it all depends on what the Cardinals kind of do offensively around him. This feels like a team that wants to kind of start to trade off pieces and strip things down.
Goldie's gone, so he's got a spot, right?
Yeah, Goldie's gone. But I just mean, like, do they move, guys like Nolan Arenado? Do they move, like Wilson Contreras if they could get out of that contract? Would they? Like, what are the runs and RBI situation going to look like for a guy like Burleson? But from a straight skills perspective, like, I kind of buy what he did last year. Makes good in zone contact and hit the ball hard. He doesn't elevate it a ton, which is one of the reasons why, like, I don't know if the 21 home runs is going to be repeatable. I think there's also questions on whether or not he's going to platoon and, and play full time. So I think there is.
I can totally see that.
I think there's just some capped upside on Burleson, but I think the floor is actually a lot safer than you would expect from someone who kind of just burst onto the scene. Not necessarily burst onto the scene. I mean, he's been around for a few years, but like at 26,
It was a breakout though,
yeah, it
right?
was a breakout at 26. That wasn't really expected by anybody. I think there's going to be a slight step back, but not one that the ADP doesn't warrant taking a shot on him.
Burleson is primary outfield with 15 games at first base. So again, going to be league specific, but we did cast a wider net with our rankings. I know I mentioned that earlier, but just for people that are wondering, he's not first base at the NFBC. No, he's not, but he is first base at a lot of other leagues that only require, say, 5 or 10 games, and some do 15. Home leagues are always different, so I'm sure somebody even does like 15, and that would get you a Burleson over at first base. I don't mind him as an outfielder either. Maybe we mention him in passing when we do the outfield preview. By the way, we're going to just do this last guy here and then cap. I don't know why I thought we'd get through all these guys. We just can't. We're allergic to going quick. We got things to say. We want to do it. So Friday we'll finish up first base. I don't mind doing 3 parts. So let's finish with a guy we've been talking about for years. And I've been mostly positive on him. I think you're a decent Jake Cronenworth fan. Is that right or no?
I was not buying in on the bounce back.
Well, you were right, I would say. I think because he had 7 more homers from 10 to 17, and the average went up from 229 to 241. But the homers, I think, were just volume mostly, 522 to 656 plate appearances. He did have more ribbies, 48 to 83. That's a big deal, and that's not just the volume. He didn't really bounce back that much, though. He went from an 89 to a 99 OPS plus. The tough part now with Cronenworth, never mind. Excuse me. He does still have second base. I thought he was down to first base only, but he does have 70 games at second base, so he's second and first everywhere. And with Cronenworth, where are we at now? So we had the down year, we had the slight bounce back, but it didn't look anything like 2020 through 2022 when he was like a player. He was a plus bat at 117 OPS plus, averaging 14 homers with 60 ribbies and 69 runs per 500 plate appearances. Where does Croney go from here?
I mean, I think this is who Cronenworth is. And I mean, I do think there is a little bit more upside, maybe in the batting average part. I mean, he makes a lot of in zone contact. The question is like, can he put that contact in play to the point where it's not going to get caught by guys?
Sure.
I don't know, but like I think there is a 250 batting average, 17 home runs, 7 or 8 stolen bases in here. Guy who plays every day as long as he's healthy, right? So he's multi-positional eligible. I don't have a problem with Cronenworth where he's going. I think he's fine.
And that price point is $295, so around pick 300 for Cronenworth. You pick up the second base eligibility. I'm fine with it too. I've been the bigger fan, so it's probably not going to be surprising to say for me to say that I'm in on it. But yeah, I really don't mind. I think he's fine. And if he didn't have the extra position, I do think I'd have more concern and maybe not want him. But the fact that I can also throw him at second, which means I can do corner or middle with Cronenworth too, those are compelling enough aspects to him that I'm still going to buy. I'm still open to it. All right, that's going to do it for us today here. Just covering the power light first baseman. The categories we have on Friday is something to prove, and then power only. Just those raw power guys that, they're going to blast you bombs, but you don't really know what you're going to get surrounding that. No, there's going to be some compelling names in there, too. I'm excited to see what you think about Ryan Mountcastle now that they're moving the wall back in. My boy Spencer Torkelson. They're talking about moving Keith over to first base. Keith Colt moving over to first base. What's that mean for Torque? Our boy, Jamer Candelario, who we were both hot on last year, did not come through for Cincy, did have an injury excuse, but is that enough for you? And Andrew Vaughn. I know you got some light family ties there for Danielle, and so the household roots for Vaughn, and I like him too, but it's been rough, and we'll have to assess on Friday how you feel, what he can do there. So that's something to prove category will be fun, but we will reconvene on Friday. Until then, Justin, good luck with the smoking cessation, and screw the commies. Go Lions.
Take it easy.
Peace.